Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Well, okay, this is ANITA FINLEY, and we're back on the radio, as we do every week, and I have something a little bit different. I haven't had a cemetery broker, I don't think ever, but we all know what a broker is. It's a real estate broker, but this isn't a real estate broker. This is a cemetery broker, and it's a wonderful, it's a Jewish cemetery broker, and his name is TOMAS STEG. So welcome to our show, Tomas.
Thank you, Anita.
You know, everybody needs to have what you sell, but they don't want to talk about it until it happens, right?
That's correct.
So tell me first, let's go back to when you were much younger, a kid. How did this all happen? It sounds like you grew up in Europe?
Yes, I was born in Europe, in Czechoslovakia actually, in 1947, and I was named after the president, Tomas Masaryk, so they asked all the boys to be given the first name, Tomas. And I was about a year old when I came here, so I actually grew up here, but I have the background of Europe.
Okay, but where did you move when you came? Did you come? You come to Florida?
No, came to the Lower East Side of Manhattan,
right.
and I lived there for the bulk of my life. In the last 25 years, I've been in Florida.
Okay, I'm sure you like it in Florida.
Oh yes,
it's a place for someone like you. What you do, I have to tell you. Of course, I didn't know you before, but my mother she lived in Miami Beach with her two sisters and her mother.
Right.
And when they all had their cemetery plots, I mean, you know, and probably one of the places, I think, Lakeside.
That's one of my cemeteries. That's
right.
Correct. Actually, I was employed for 25 years by the corporation that owns Lakeside, and they own Star of David and other cemeteries in Florida. And the last 6 years, I've been on my own. Myself and my son, we have a variety of properties throughout Jewish-only Florida. So we can offer our services, which include the cemetery plot and making the arrangements. I sit with families from start to finish. I also go to every funeral that I'm involved in. So it's a hands-on situation, and
it sounds like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just putting somebody in the ground in the plot. You know them, you help them with all of the other things.
That's correct. I help them, I advise them, I guide them, and I work with them from start to finish.
And of course, it's a mystery. I just have to tell you this, that especially younger people, it is a mystery for them.
Well, it may be a mystery, but it's guaranteed. You're guaranteed to use it one day. And many younger people are starting to think about it because they're making plans for their parents, so they want to be near the parents forever after.
Right. Yes, and you, of course, have a great assortment. Well, I guess, why don't you explain really the difference in what you do and someone else, you just go to a cemetery?
Well, first of all, when you go to the cemetery, and it's called at need, at the time that you need it, when someone has died, the cemetery charges you a disproportionate amount of excess money, which I always felt was unfair. I own the property, my corporation owns the property, and we can offer it at a discount for people either making plans in advance or needing it at the last moment.
Yes, I know people who actually had to pay an enormous amount. I couldn't believe it.
Correct.
Because it was something that was very sudden.
Correct.
Because actually, I don't think the person, he was an older gentleman, but he didn't make any arrangements before.
Right, and if you have no arrangements, it's unfortunate that they charge their list price, so to speak, and people have no choice but to pay it. And if there are children involved, they all throw their credit cards up on the table because somehow mom and dad will be buried, irregardless of what the cemetery is asking for at the moment. And by doing it in advance, A, you know what you have. Number two, I offer interest-free financing. So in other words, I take a percentage up front, and then I offer 2 years interest-free financing. Should a death occur during the 24 months, it's a balloon payment and the balance is due. So you get discounts, You get to choose what you want in an orderly fashion when you're not under the gun, so to speak. And it's when the time comes and you need it, and the rabbis actually say making funeral arrangements is a lucky charm for long life. It's better to have the arrangement and not need it than to need it and not have it. And when the time comes, a person makes one phone call and all their arrangements are followed, and it's orderly and it's done properly.
It has compassion. Sounds like to me.
Sure. Yes, yes.
You know, I'm going to give some information out right now. So everyone, you're listening to Tomas Steg, S-T-E-G, and he is a cemetery broker. I don't know of any others, but he certainly seems like he's been doing this a long time and cares. And what we're going to do, though, is we're going to give his phone number out. I guess, should we give your cell phone? What number should we be giving for people?
Cell number is the best.
Okay.
It's 954-557-8439, and I would request no Saturday phone calls. I do work Sundays, and I'm available basically any time except Saturdays.
Okay, so that's good. So that now we know we have something that somebody can call to find you. Let's just go over this. So how do you get the cemetery plots? How do you do that?
Well, there are two hats that I wear, Anita. I wear one hat during my 25 years as an employee of Star of David, which is one of the largest Jewish cemeteries in Florida. I started buying cemetery spaces for many different congregations. So I'm the chairman of 20 different religious synagogues that have spaces either at Star of David or Beth David or Lakeside. And besides being the top salesman for all those years at Star of David, prior to my leaving and retiring, I had an opportunity to buy property for myself. So if someone comes to me and they want to be buried according to the Orthodox way in a religious section, I'm the chairman, I can help them. And if they want to buy directly from me, I've got almost 30 years experience in helping families, and I help them along the way.
So I actually am a real estate broker on the side, and so I'm throwing my knowledge of that into what you do, and I want to know, so when you bought these, they let you buy them in your name?
No, they
okay.
Actually,
explain how that happens.
While I was an employee, my father-in-law bought large tracts of property there, and then when he passed away, he left it for me and my wife.
I see.
And the other properties that I manage for the synagogues actually are owned by the individual synagogues. I have synagogues all the way from Miami all the way up to Boynton Beach, and each synagogue has their own dedicated section, and their section has rules and regulations and bylaws and things you can do and can't do. But everything's meant to be kept to a minimum, and even the stones that are put up, everything is uniform. No one who is richer than another person can show off, so to speak. So it's very, very properly done. In my religious sections, a man is buried next to his wife, but on the other side of the man is a man of another family. So it's sort of a separation, like when you go into an Orthodox synagogue, men sit on one side and women sit on another side.
But that's Orthodox, but you also help people if they're not Orthodox.
Yes, I do. Anyone in the Jewish religion, I have ground spaces. I have 150 mausoleums, and some people choose to be buried above ground. Some people feel that being buried in the ground
isn't what they want.
Right.
You know, they'd rather be in a mausoleum.
Mausoleum, you walk into a building. If it's raining out, you can visit with your loved one, and it's all done a little differently.
Right. Well, you know, it's really like an education. I'm sure that you spend a lot of time educating people who come to talk to you, because it's not.
And not everyone that comes to talk to me right away jumps into it, because they have to think about it, they have to plan on it, they talk to their families. And many people that have property up north, they come from the northern states, choose to stay down here because this becomes the Shiva house. So if a family man dies, the wife stays here in the house, and all the children come down to sunny Florida for a burial, versus a woman having to travel up to New York, New Jersey in the middle of winter with 10 or 20 below zero temperature, and maybe the ground is frozen and they can't be buried for a week or so.
Well, so what about people who bought up north when they were young and now they're down here? Do you sell their cemetery plots?
No, I buy their property from them and I donate it to organizations so that indigent people who can't afford to be buried are shipped up to New York to those spaces.
That is really nice. That's very unusual. You spend a lot of time, it sounds like to me, doing things that are not so much remunerative, that you're just doing it because you want to help people,
Well,
part of your religion.
We try to help people that are wanting cremation because it's against the Jewish religion, so that by me donating graves, I'm saving these individuals from cremation and giving them a proper burial.
Well, let's talk since it's a good thing because you're here, your cremation. Seems like a lot of Jewish people now don't care and they don't mind being cremated, but you don't want to handle any of that. Is that
No,
right?
I don't.
That's not part of your religion.
No.
And what you see about that.
No.
Would you explain what the difference is for our audience, please? What in the religion? What is it?
The Orthodox religion forbids cremation because you're desecrating the body. You're turning the body into a small box of ashes, and we believe you came from the dust. You return to the dust, so that even for people who can't afford it, we find ways to bury them properly.
Okay, but now there are people who, let's say, have been in fires, they've been burned just by the very essence of their life. Would you then take what they have and bury them in a box or something in your cemetery?
Not in my spaces, but I do have non-sectarian spaces where a Jewish family might be buried to have a partner that's not Jewish. So there are always some place where we can fit everybody.
So you just have a lot of heart. I can hear it in your voice, Tomas. And
Thank
so
you.
you will make sure that if someone needs your services, you'll figure out what to do for
Yes,
them, right?
yes,
According to
yes.
the Orthodox and other, just
Correct.
so that people
Correct.
have that.
Correct.
You did say something before
About?
people who all of a sudden this happens and now they have a body and it's an emergency, and I know someone that had that happen, and
Too many people.
yeah, and
Either by accident or unfortunately today many younger people, drugs and things of that nature. Whether it's pre-need, ahead of time, or at need, I'm available to help people.
right, because the at need is the place where people do get taken a
Right.
lot, and
They don't have time to shop, they don't have time to plan. It's a type of thing where, we have to bury mom or dad at the last minute, and whatever the price is, okay, we'll pay it, People are being held hostage, really.
right. Well, I don't know if this is even appropriate, but I'm going to tell you just a little story that someone I knew was an elder man who was a pretty important man, and he died. He had cancer in 3 months, and his wife, a younger woman, not of the same faith, who was a Jewish faith, didn't quite know what to do, but he wound up at one of the cemeteries, I think that, whether Lakeside or one of them, and she didn't have any money. It was all tied up. So the body is down there, and they're demanding money, a lot of money.
Large chunks.
And she didn't have a way to get into the estate, so she did something that wasn't right. She actually wrote a check out of an account that she didn't have a right to.
Right.
Because she said, the body's there, what am I going to do? She didn't ask me, but I heard that.
Right.
Well, what would someone do, let's say, if
Actually,
that happens?
cemeteries do work with families that have insurance policies, and they actually charge a large fee on top of their normal high rate just to access the insurance policies. So instead of them being paid immediately, they're paid about 4 or 5 weeks later when a death certificate will prove the situation, and then they're having to pay an additional sum of $500 to $1,000 extra for that convenience of burying their loved one.
Because otherwise, the body's down there. What are they going to do with it? I mean, something has to get done.
Children generally, as I say, put their credit cards on the table, and if you have 3 children, they all chip in, and then you have to deal with the credit card 30 or 45 days later.
Well, that was easy. That wasn't easy for her. She didn't. It turned out to be not a very good thing. She's still fighting a lot of things about it. But, I just said to her, well, you may have had to just leave him there or something. I don't know what would have happened if she couldn't even get a hold of the money and they wouldn't do something. What happens?
Probably the person would be held in their refrigerated unit for a month.
Oh, so that's what they would do.
But too many people have compassion, and someone would have stepped up to the
Yeah.
plate to figure out how to put the person at rest and then pay the bill later on.
Right. It's interesting that we don't think about the emergencies. There are people who never thought they were going to get cancer. They go in for a test and all of a sudden they have cancer, right?
Unfortunately. My wife sees it on a daily basis because she's a chemotherapy nurse at West End Hospital.
Really?
And she sees many young people who all of a sudden don't feel well. They go through a battery of tests, and 2 weeks later it's determined they have 2 months to live.
So your wife, that's very hard on her because she must be as kind as you are. You don't have someone that you live with it when you're like you are.
That's correct.
So that's very hard. Yeah, well, it's good that there are people out there like you. I have to say that. So I'm glad that people, I know we have a lot of listeners. And this may not be the topic that sometimes you want a topic that, like our expo, we had this big, exciting fun, but these are the facts of life. And that's why I like to have someone like you on, because we have to go in all directions to make things work.
You can't hide your head in the sand.
No, you can't. And I like to have someone like you who is saying it how it is, just like it is. And you offer something that a lot of people don't have power for. It sounds like you have built up this whole practice. I have another question, but let me give everybody your name again. It's TOMAS STEG, S-T-E-G, and he is the owner of Steg Cemetery Brokers. And you can call him at 954-557-8439. Remember, this is Pencil Talk Radio, so get your pencils out. I'm going to repeat this one more time. 954-557-8439. All right. My other question is, what would happen? There are people who do have cemetery plots.
Yes.
And they have them, and they don't need them anymore. They don't want them. Do you buy them from them?
I do. For the most part, I do. And some that I can't use, as I say, I donate them.
Right.
So that something will be done to accommodate everyone calling me.
Yeah. Because I guess families years ago bought sections, didn't they?
Yes, they bought family plots so that the families would be buried together. Many families bought 10, 5, 10, 15, or even more.
Right.
And now families are scattered throughout the United States, and they just find that it's easier to be buried in their home state instead of trying to get on an airplane going back to the northern states where the winters are brutal,
Well, and also there's no one to visit them.
No one to visit them, it's true. So that if death occurs down here, this becomes a Shiva house. Children come and they visit, spend some time with the surviving spouse, and they always have a place to visit mom and dad.
I see. Well, that's a lot of decisions, of course, and then we know that all families don't agree. That's another problem. And so you're probably part psychologist, aren't you?
Well, I spend a great deal of time educating families, but they do come back, some a month, 2 months later, some a year later, say, "Oh, remember me? I'm ready now." But they're getting a free education.
Yeah.
No pressure. They get all the facts. They get it straight, and the choice is up to them.
So how long have you been in this business?
Totally 30 years.
30 years.
30 years.
And what made you decide to do this?
Well, I come from New York, and I was in the jewelry business, fine jewelry, and that's the kind of business where the women would come in and look to use their purchase as soon as possible. In other words, if a woman saw a nice bracelet or ring in the window, that would come in, oh, I have to have it. But now I'm in a business just the opposite, where people come and they purchase and plan, but they don't want to use it for a long time. But they're guaranteed to use it, one way or another.
So you went from the jewelry business into this. There
Yes.
must have been a particular thing that happened to you.
Well, actually, no. I came to Florida, and
Oh, so you gave your business up.
I
You
gave
were
my
in New York.
business
Okay.
up in New York.
Well, that's
yeah.
what happened then.
Yeah.
So you left your jewelry business
Yeah.
instead of doing it down here.
Yeah, I looked to help people, and make a long story short, 30 years later, here I am. And my son is joining me in the corporation so that he helps people as well.
How old is your son?
He's 28.
28.
28.
Is he married yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not
Okay, Fiddler on the Roof. Okay. He's not married yet. Well, isn't that nice? So now you do have a little family business.
Yes.
So that's that makes it even better for you. And your wife, of course, is busy doing what she does, and
Correct.
that's amazing. How long have you been married?
35 years.
35 years.
years.
And so you lived in New York, and your parents, what did they do?
My parents had a combination barbershop beauty parlor. My father was a barber, and in the Lower East Side they had a shop. The front half was a barbershop, and the back half was a beauty parlor for the ladies. So they worked together for many years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, my grandparents lived in New York. One was a tailor. I don't think my grandmother worked, but he was the tailor. I had two grandfathers. I think they were both tailors, as a matter of fact, to think about that. But, well, it's been, it's been wonderful talking to you.
My pleasure.
It's a different, I haven't really, I've had people in large companies, Dignity, people like that who sell
Right.
pre-need and all,
Pre-need.
but I've never had anybody who's a cemetery broker, and you're such a sweet, dear man. I mean, I can understand why people would like to go to you.
Thank you.
And so I want to just, thank you for being here and for doing this, and we'll have you back on again, Tomas.
All right.
But I hope people will, to go. And first of all, everyone, I do have people. There are people who have, Seth Levy, and Chuck Montgomery. They're people who have been watching.
Beautiful.
And and they have comments, and
Beautiful.
they do watch Facebook. Are you on Facebook at all?
No.
Well, you are today.
Okay. Okay.
So your son is, and he will. I'm sure. I would think
Yes.
he is, and he'll see this. So this will
Okay.
be super.
Okay.
Well, thank you for being with us today,
Thank you.
and look forward to seeing you